Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Grindstone Church's online service for the weekend of June 13th, 14th. We're so glad that you guys have decided to join us, and we look forward as we look ahead to Christy leading us in worship this morning.
As our call to worship this week, I want to read from Psalm chapter 57, verses 9 to 11. I will praise you, Lord, among the nations. I will sing of you among the peoples. For great is your love, reaching to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. This week, I thought it would be fun to sing a little medley of songs geared for the kids. These were songs that I sung when I was a little girl, and hopefully you know them, but if I know we don't sing them a lot upstairs at church, and maybe we're going to have to change that. But they're beautiful songs, and yes, they're simple songs, but there's a beautiful message in both of them for us to remember that Jesus loves us, and because he loves us, we have a light that we can shine, and we can share that love that we have from him with those around us. And that's just a really powerful message right now for our world, and I thought it would be neat to sing. So if you know it, sing with me. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Oh, yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Sing it again. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me.
Okay, everybody, we're going to do the surprise box this morning. This is something that we do every Sunday. It's a lot of fun. And what we want to do is pull something out of the box that tells us something about God. Now, we talk about it for a couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
So Sam's going to bring over the surprise box. We're going to see what's inside. Come on, Sammy. Let's see what's inside the surprise box today. You want to open it up?
Yeah.
And it is a...
Flashlight.
Okay, show the camera this flashlight. Does it work?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, don't blind everybody. We got to bring the flashlight over here, okay? So the flashlight, what do you think the flashlight might tell us about God? What do you think?
Flash.
Yes, it's very bright to the eyes. Now, if we were to turn this on at night, would it be really bright?
No.
No, it's kind of a bit of a weak flashlight. If we were to go outside on a day like today, where the sun's really bright, would we need sunglasses?
No.
No?
Yes.
Well, you have superhuman eyes, so we would need your super cool sunglasses, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that the light reminds us of is that God is light, and in Him there is no darkness at all. And one of the things that we see is that light effortlessly comes from God, but it also reminds us of His purposes for us as well too. So we're going to read about that in our story for a couple minutes today. And if you want, I'm going to need your help to put the light on the page too. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So this tells us a little bit about God's purposes for us and helping us to understand how much light we get through the year and the reason why it is the way that it is. This story is spring, summer, fall, and winter. Everything on earth has its special season. That's from Ecclesiastes 3:1.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Spring and summer, fall and winter. You know what the seasons are, but have you ever wondered why we have them? It's because the earth doesn't sit straight up and down in space. It tilts, or leans, a little bit. 23.5 degrees to be exact. So can we do a tilt or a lean?
No.
No. It's kind of like that. That's about 23.5 degrees. So as the earth makes its 365-day trip around the sun, the amount of sunlight that falls on each part of the earth changes a little bit every day. Okay, come on. The places that get more sunlight have summer and spring, while the places that get less sunlight have fall and winter. Because the earth is always moving, the seasons are always changing.
Mama.
And when it's freezing cold outside during the winter, you can know the summer sunshine is on its way. In fact, it's already happening somewhere on Earth. And thankfully, we are getting the sun and summer right now, right? Because summer is the best season on Earth.
Dada, look.
Amazing. Hey, can you light the page? I need some light on the page. The seasons aren't the only things that are constantly changing. In fact, just about everything on this earth is changing. Families change, schools and jobs change, friends change, even you change. Sometimes it can be hard to know what you can count on because everything seems to be changing. But remember this. Remember this.
Yeah.
God never changes. Nope, not ever. He's the same as He was yesterday, and He'll be the same tomorrow too. Hebrews 13:8, James 1:17. So when He says He loves you and He'll always be there for you, you know it's true. Summer or spring, fall or winter. Seasons come and go, but God always stays the same. And that's a good reminder from when we see the sun
Dada,
and from when we see light. Yes, honey?
look, I see the light on the TV.
That's great. That's the light. It's a good reminder. And so the prayer here is, Lord, no matter what season I'm in, whether it's sunshiny or sad or somewhere in between, I know that you have a purpose for it. Help me to trust you. And this little blurb here says, how great. Did you know that when it's summer in North America's winter, did you know that when it's summer in North America, it's winter in Australia? That's because for half the year, the top half of the earth is tilted towards the sun, so it has the warmer seasons of spring and summer. And at the same time, the bottom half is tilted away from the sun, giving it fall and winter. For the other half of the year, the earth tilts the opposite way, so the seasons are reversed. You want to do our tilt again? 23.5 degrees. So the sun is a great reminder. The light is a great reminder. Whether it's sunny or sad or in between, we know that God has a purpose for it. So kids, just remember today that no matter what you're going through, no matter how life is going, God has a purpose for it. And if you need a reminder of that, just check out a flashlight or go outside and see the beautiful sunshine. Okay guys, you might remember the last time we did a sheep bookmark as a craft was part of what we were looking at with our lesson. Well, we're not going to do a craft today. We're going to do a fun little object lesson with what we're going to do with two things coming up next, okay? Two things. This is really exciting. So what we're going to look at is looking back at the theme of light. We're going to look at this fun activity that teaches kids about making moonlight. We just looked at how, whether it's sunshiny or sad, that God has purposes in every season. But we're going to look at a neat way in which the sun, in every place that it is in the universe, also plays a role in God's purposes, even when we think things aren't there, right? So this is about making moonlight. This is from one of our Kiwi boxes. And so what you need is like a styrofoam ball, you need a pencil, and a flashlight. So we have the moon, we have the foil. Where's the flashlight?
In the hand.
Okay. So this is going to be the moon, the flashlight is the sun. And so this experiment is to discover where the moon gets its glow. When I was a kid, I always thought that the moon had its own light, but that's not true because the sun plays a role in this whole thing. So what you do is you push the pencil into the ball, and this is going to be your moon. Then you need to turn off all the lights in the room.
And crayons.
So how are we going to do that? We're going to try to make things a little bit dimmer, and this flashlight is going to be our sun. And so what you want to do is, Sammy, you want to shine your flashlight on our moon so that we can see the sun reflecting on our moon. I think our sun just went for a little bit of a walk. Metaphorical and literal sun. So if you want to bring
Mama, why you turn off
bring the light over to our sun, then we can do this experiment. How do you flash the light over here?
Why?
So we can see it. Oh, that's what we want to do. So this is a cool little thing that's in our book here. It says, did you know that moonlight isn't moonlight at all? It's actually the sun's light reflecting off of the moon. Just because you can't see the sun at night doesn't mean it isn't still there. It's just facing the other side of the earth. The sun's light travels to the moon, and the moon's surface reflects it. Where'd our sun go? Okay, bring it back to the moon. See, it's the sun reflecting on the moon. That's what we see when we see moonlight at night. Just like the styrofoam ball reflects the flashlight in your experiment, only a lot brighter. And I thought that line in there about how the sun's light travels to the moon and the moon's surface just reflects it. And just because you can't see the sun at night doesn't mean it still isn't there. I thought that too is a great reminder to us about the way that God's working. Just because you don't immediately see Him at work doesn't mean that He's not actively doing something else that helps us and guides our way. So that's one of our fun kids experiments. And this is one thing that we hope that you guys try, and we hope that it's as fun and chaotic for you as it has been for us. Okay, you guys, so today we're going to be doing our second experiment that has to do with the sun. We're going to use the sun's power to make s'mores. So anytime you have an experiment and you can eat it, and it's as delicious as s'mores, that's a great experiment, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sam, come on over. We're going to show me how to use your own makeshift oven to use the sun's power to make s'mores. We've been talking about the sun today and how we use its power, how we use its light, and how God uses it for many purposes. And if we can use the sun to make s'mores, that's even better. So to make your oven, all you got to do, let's look at the oven here, Sam. All you got to do is cut the flaps off the box and then cover it with aluminum foil, tape it down. Make sure that you put a piece of your plastic wrap attached at the bottom of the lid here. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put your graham crackers in the bottom here, put the marshmallows on top on one side, put the chocolate chips on the other one. Just want to swing around here so we can see it, Sammy. And then the good part You want to flip the plastic over there like that. As we put the plastic wrap cover over top, and then what we do is we put it outside for 20 minutes. And then what happens when it's outside in the sun for 20 minutes and it's hot, Sam? What happens to chocolate? It's good. It gets all melty and gooey. You stick it together, and then you eat the s'mores, right? Now, are s'mores really good?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're chewy and gooey, and they get all over the place. It's one of the best things ever. So this is a really easy experiment that anybody can do, and it's a really fun way to use the sun's power to do a fun experiment with kids. And it's another way that we can think about how in all of God's purposes for us, whether it's sunshiny or whether it's sad, that He is working things for the good of His children. And sometimes we need to know that in the middle of pain. Sometimes we know that when we're eating s'mores and life is good. So make sure you try out our solar oven s'mores. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to use the sun. Hey kids, for a few more weeks, we're going to keep focusing on our memory verse for this weekend. This memory verse that we have is a really important one that we looked at last week. It's a really important one for you to know for your life, so we hope that it's one that you're able to get your head and your heart around and memorize it. For most of you, your parents probably know it right off the bat. It's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Proverbs 3, 4 to 6, sorry. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight." So give that a look this week. Give it a chance to be memorized. And if you want to, why don't you say it on Zoom on Sunday as you meet together as a church community. Just say to your parents, "Hey, do you mind if I just borrow Zoom for a second for the end, just to tell Pastor Brian that I know Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And then we can show each other how well we know this really important verse. So I'll commend that to you guys. Hope you have a lot of fun with it, and hopefully we'll see you on Sunday.
Now Miss Christy plays song for us.
Precious blood has left me forgiven, pure like the whitest of snow, powerful to make sin and shame retreat. This covenant is making me whole, so I will rise and
Good morning, Grindstone Church. Thanks for joining us for our online service this weekend. And thanks for joining us as we continue to keep walking through the Psalms that we've been going through over the last couple of weeks. This weekend we're in Psalm 11. It's a bit of a shorter psalm, and it really speaks to each of us because for many of us we've been through situations of great difficulty. And David helps us as we seek to understand how we can live wisely when we go through situations of great pain and difficulty. Now, Psalm 11 begins with setting us in a time when David was in great danger. He was in danger every single day of his life. He was living in a time where he was a threat to King Saul. And King Saul had this obsession with seeing David dead. Not only was David on the run in his own land, in his own kingdom where he was loved across the country, but also he had a king who was drunk with power. He had a king who was out for him. But that king, King Saul, also suffered from dementia. And what he would do is he would issue these edicts and laws that would change day by day, week through week, the dynamics of how you were to live as a citizen at that time in their home country. And so David was in a really difficult spot. And he was trying to work through what he should do now that he's facing danger on a daily basis. It kind of makes you wonder, what do you do when you're thrown around by life, when you're going through a time of intense pain and difficulty? What do you do when things are strained and you're reeling from the weight of your own current situation? This is something that sometimes in churches, sometimes with pastors, we talk about this in a certain way, like it's something that everybody should know, or it's something that everybody should have mastered and completely pinned down by this point in your life. But I'd just like to point something out that, I think all of us need to grow in this area. A lot of us have a lot of work to do. A lot of us are in real process when it comes to how we're working through pain, how we're working through seasons of intense difficulty. And the good news about this is, and I hope that that's what you're encouraged by today when we read this psalm, is to see that God is so committed to your growth that He will see it through in each and every season of your life. David faced a situation that consumed him every day. When he would wake up, he would feel the pressing weight, the anxiety of this on his chest when he would wake up every day. And the reality is that David, who's called the man after God's own heart, discovered and pointed to some things that I believe can be instructive and helpful for us today, all of us who are along the way, who are on the path, who are growing with this, to help us so that we can keep walking when we're in situations of intense pain too. When things are painful, the thing that David points out here in Psalm 11 is that there's only really one place you can turn to find relief. And that place to turn is to God Himself. And if you're skeptical, I just want to invite you to come along with me as we look and see what David says here as we read Psalm 11 together. We're going to break it up into three parts because there's three things that David reminds us here as we read Psalm 11 together. The first thing we need to do is to consider God's protection over us. We need to consider God's protection over us, and we see that in verses 1 through 3. It says this: "In the Lord I take refuge. How then can you say to me, 'Flee like a bird to your mountain'? For look, the wicked bend their bows, they set their arrows against strings to shoot from the shadows at the upright in heart. When the foundations are being destroyed, what can the righteous do? You know, I think this sounds a lot like me when I go through a painful and difficult situation. When pain or difficulty is allowed through the gate in my life, when things go badly, the first thing that I want to do is I want to flee. I want to do what David talks about here. I want to just, if I had with the wings of a bird, I would just open them up and fly away from a painful situation as fast and as far as I possibly could. I think that that's probably our natural human position, is that when things get tough, we just want to escape and get away when things are hard. Maybe you found that too. But when things go badly in our life, David says, now I know that we all want to take off, but God actually offers us something better than escapism. You ever thought about that? God offers us something better than simply trying to escape the pain that comes through in our life. The thing that God offers us is foundations. Foundations are the ground rules by which a society operates. And David's ground rules, as I told you before, they were constantly changing because you had this king who was out for him, who was mentally unstable, and he was constantly changing the ground rules day by day in the land where David lived. And instead of flying away, David says, slow down. Instead of trying to run away and escape, you need to trust in God's words and in God's character. You need to stand on some foundations. The only true foundations that we have, the only true foundations we can have in this life is God's Word. It's by trusting ourselves in His character and in God's Word. You know, Jesus compared how we do this when He told this story about the wise man would build his house upon the rock. You know, you don't build your house on sand because it's going to sink. You put your house on rock and it's going to be sustained, it's going to be held strong, it's going to stand firm because it's on solid ground. And He talked about building your life on a foundation of strength so that you could survive any type of storm and weather that comes along. And that strength, that rock, is on Jesus, is on God's Word Himself, and that's the way that you're able to survive and weather anything. It's this picture of stability that comes with putting everything that you have in your life on God's name and on God's character. So what David starts here with is he reminds us that we need to consider God's protection over us. He says, wait, don't try to run away, don't try to escape. He said, stay here and stand here on God's words for you, because you know that those are solid and strong foundations. The second thing David points out for us is between verses 4 and 6, which reads this: the Lord is in His holy temple. The Lord is on His heavenly throne. He observes everything on earth. His eyes examine them. The Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, He hates with a passion. On the wicked He will rain fiery coals and burning sulfur. A scorching wind will be their lot. Think about that for a second. The Lord is in His holy temple. As chaotic as David's life is, as completely turned up as David's life is, the thing that he reminds himself is that God is still on His throne. If I'm having the best day of my life, God is on His throne. If I'm having the busiest day of my life, God is still on His throne. If I'm on my worst day of my life, well, guess what? David's saying God is still on His throne. There are days when it might not look like it. The world's turned completely upside down. People are going crazy. Nations are doing thing against nation. There's all kind of political and cultural unrest. But David's saying you need to stop when you're going through difficulty and pain and remind yourself that God is on the throne here. There might be days when it doesn't feel like it. There might be days when it doesn't look like it. But He is still on His throne. But He's not just sitting there passively. He's not just, God is watching us from a distance. He's not doing that. He's not being Bette Midler's God here. He is watching and he is examining every situation and every human heart. How's that for close? David points out something really important here. And this is a teaching that's there in Scripture from the beginning all the way through the end. It's one that we run past very quickly because maybe sometimes we don't see it, or sometimes we're just not open to hearing it. The thing that David points out here is that trusting God does not guarantee a life of ease. Okay? Faith, trusting God does not guarantee a life of ease. And here's how we know this. I wish this was something that every church, every Bible study just made clear when they looked at the Bible's teaching, because I feel like that's something that shipwrecks so many people's faith, is that they receive the gospel, they receive faith in Jesus, then they expect things to work out a certain way, because certain things get guaranteed to them by the person who's sharing it with them that aren't things that are supposed to be included in that. It's not about having a life of ease or prosperity. It's not about living a life of comfort or great health or getting a big pile of cash from God. It's a life that's based on being built upon God's truth. It's a life that's built on His foundation. Because Scripture tells us that God Himself is truth. We build our lives entirely on Him and on His direction for us. That's what it's about. And for so many people, they're completely railroaded when pain and when difficulty comes into our life. What David's doing through this psalm is he's saying, here's what it's for. Here's what you can do with it. And here's how to respond to it rightly. Well, we're just grasping the best way that we can when pain comes through the doorway of our life. Verse 5 mentions that God brings testing to the righteous. The righteous are the people who've been made right with God. We don't like the idea of God testing us, but it's right here in the Psalms and again throughout the Bible. Think about the way that you talk to your kids. You test them to see what they know. You test them to see if they understand something. Because as your parent, as the mom or the dad, you want them to be straight on certain things so they can do well, so that they can function well in life, don't you? So you test them, you ask them questions, you observe them, you watch them when they go through situations, because you want to make sure that they understand certain things well. Because if they do that, then when they're on their own, then when they're independent, they can do things for themselves. Think about it when you get a little bit older and your parents are the ones who need to receive help. Your parents are the ones who need you to parent them. And what do? You call them up, you ask them some questions, you talk to them, you want to make sure that they're straight on a couple things too, don't you? Why? Because if you do that, you're making sure that they're being cared for. You're making sure that they don't miss any angles, that they don't slip up on something. And that's an expression of your care and your concern for them. This form of testing to see what's there. You're testing to make sure that they're growing and moving towards a place of goodness and peace. And this attentiveness, this testing, is an expression of God's love to us, of God's love for us, of His grace for us. I said it at the beginning, there's this quote that's just been rattling around in my head all year long. That God is far more committed to our growth than we are. And I just really want to encourage you with that today, because there's days where we all feel like we're blowing it. We're all feeling like we're dropping this whole Christianity thing. We all feel like we're not in a place where we should be. We feel like we're not growing in the way that we're supposed to. But the thing that we see from God here is that He is a tireless God who is so committed to our growth that He Himself is going to see it through right to the end for each of us. Because He's our Father, and He treats us as our children, and He carries us along and helps us when we need Him to. But David reminds us that even when this happens, God is testing us to move us in the right direction. And that right direction, listen you guys, that right direction is always closer to Him. Okay? It's not to somewhere vague. God's not leading you into some corner. God is always leading you to a place that is a place of obedience, that is a place of goodness, and it always lands you closer in your life to Him. The third and final thought that David reminds us of when we go through deep difficulty is to keep in view God's presence for us. Okay? So remember His protection for us, remember His providence for us, and the last and final thing that we remember is that we keep in view God's presence for us. We see this in the final verse, Psalm 11, which is verse 7. It says, "For the Lord is righteous, He loves justice. The upright will see His face." The upright will see His face. It's this idea of experiencing the favor of God if you see His face. You know, to see someone's face, to see God's face, is to see the uplifting of His face, to see the brightening of His face. It's this idea of being accepted and welcomed in, of seeing this cheered up and brightened up face at the prospect of seeing you. You know, every morning we have two boys who wake us up every day. They wake up very early, and when they're up, they're ready to go. It is 200% fire up the cylinders. You've got to be ready. So when you're a parent, you're running downstairs, you're trying to crank out that coffee as soon as possible because you got to keep up with these guys. Well, our son Sam, when he wakes up, he's 5 years old. When he wakes up, he's so excited to see you. And when he sees your face, he lights up and he runs straight for you and he goes for this big hug at the very start of the day. This is a really exciting thing. Sam's so excited, he's like, "Daddy!" He runs straight for you. It's awesome. It's so much fun. It's something that we treasure for this stage in our lives. You know, sometimes he runs so fast into you that he just crashes right into you because he's so excited to see your face. Like he crashed into me the other day and he gave me a black eye because he literally tried to get like in and on my face because he was so excited to see me. And what is that all about? What's expressed in that? Of a child running to his dad in the morning? Well, it's all about welcoming. It's all about acceptance. It's all about love that's in there. And it's the same way that's there. I think that's a good picture for us, is that as we draw near to God, He just brings us close to Him, into a place of welcoming to Him, into a place of acceptance and love to Him, if we will seek Him out. And God yearns to draw us close to Him. He yearns for us to come to Him when we go through these times of extreme difficulty and pain. So what's the application here? How do we live this out? Well, I was thinking about it through the week. What David talks about here is that our initial instinct always, when pain comes into our life, is to fly off and to flee towards another kind of security. Okay? What David's trying to get us to do is, when you go through a painful situation, stop, pump the brakes, and accept the testings of life in God's purposes for us. Okay, this could be God doing something here. It might not be, but it could be. And that's enough reason to make us stop. Another thing that we need to think about here is that we need to wait for an outcome of God drawing us near to Him, of seeing God's face lifted up towards us as we draw near to Him through this. You know, this is a huge paradigm shift in faith. It is. You might not realize it, but it's actually a huge paradigm shift for us as a believer. Because for so many of us, when we go through a painful situation, so often we think that when something happens to us, something's not right with God, or we did something, or we're somehow getting pushed out of God's presence when these things happen. Because what happens? Those first couple questions come to us, like, why is God doing this to me? Or why would He let me go through this? Or why is He allowing this to happen? What David's saying here is actually this is the opposite. For the believer, God's testings are the way forward into His immediate presence. The testing pushes you forward into God. It doesn't pull you away. It doesn't sweep you away. It pulls you forward towards Him. And so that there's times when it's actually a good thing to be brought into God's presence and closeness because of the harshness of these present realities. You know, I think of what someone said a couple years ago that's always stayed with me. I remember this from like 20 years ago. The guy was talking about how we go through pain and difficulties in life. He said, you know, we always panic too soon. And I think that there's a lot of wisdom in that. We always panic too soon. Hopefully what you're hearing from God through the Psalms today is that when you go through pain, don't run away, pump the brakes, be open to seeing what God's doing here, and then walk towards Him. Walk to go see His face. And just stop and just think, you know what, and talk to God about it. God, is this something that I need to be paying attention to? Is this something that you're working through in my life? Pray about it. Bring other people into this. Get them to pray about it. Make them aware of it. Because this could be an opportunity for them to take care of you or to pray for you for a felt need or a specific need of something that might be going on in your life. Give the body that you're attached to an opportunity to take care of you. Let the rest of the body, let the rest of the other believers know about it so that they can pray with you, so that they can walk with you as you go through it. You know, a couple years ago I was in a Bible study with a couple guys. One guy had a need that he had coming up, and then everybody listens to that need, and they all go, oh, well, maybe hopefully somebody can come up with that, or somebody can help you with that need that you have, because you have like 8 things that need to be taken care of for you. And one of the guys in the group who was paying attention, he said, wait a second, we can all do that for you. We can all take care of those things for you. There's 10 of us. You have 8 needs. You take one, you take one. Can you do that one? No. Okay, next guy. And went around the circle, and each of the 8 guys paid attention long enough to look after those needs, and they got taken care of with those specific things that were going on in this guy's life. And that's what it's about here. It's about paying attention to what God's doing. It's about paying attention to what He's doing. Maybe it's not even in your life. Maybe you're not going through a season of pain, but you can be that caregiver to somebody else who might be in a season of pain. Well, I hope that God's Word has been an encouragement to you today from Psalm 11. And I just want to close things off today in prayer as we thank God for being a God who is with us when we go through seasons of chaos and trouble and pain. Let's pray together. Father God, we thank you that you are a God who walks with us in every season of life. Thank you that you are a God who cares about us enough to test us, who cares about us enough to ask questions to see what's there. And God, will you help us to not be people that run when pain comes into our life, but instead to seek you, to listen to you. And will you help us to remember the strong foundation that's under us and the strong God who's above us. we go through times of heartache and pain and difficulty. Thank you that you have shown us this example from David, who is the man after God's own heart. Will you make us to be men and women after your own heart as we seek to understand you and cling to you through each time in our lives? We ask this in your name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you for joining us for our online service today. I hope that Psalm 11 has been of great, immense help to you as it has been to me. If there's any way we at Grindstone Church can be a support to you, please let us know this week. You can email me, brian@grindstonechurch.com, or if you need prayer, make sure you reach out to us at prayer@grindstonechurch.com, and we'll be happy to help you in any way that we can. Thank you, guys. Hope you have a great week.